Hi, how are you doing? Today is another spoiler reading vlog. I'm gonna do this intro spoiler free, so you can stick around for like a short while longer, but like the rest of the video is gonna be filled with spoilers. Because today I'm gonna be reading The Wrath of the Triple Goddess by Riordan. This is the second in the senior year adventures, which is basically you can add on to the Percy Jackson and the Olympian series, which is one of my favorite series of all time. So obviously when reading these, I need to capture all of my emotions and all of my feels. I did the same for The Chalice of the Gods, which is the first one in these like add-on books. So I'll leave that up in the eye and down below so you can go watch my thought on that book instead if you want to. But yeah, I spent a lot of time reading this book. Not a lot of time, I spent a day reading this book. I absolutely flew through it. I loved it. I think it is an absolute honestly, when it was first announced that there were going to be more books, I was excited but also a bit scared. But these books have truly held up to the Percy Jackson standards so well, and they're amazing additions, and I totally get why they exist. They're not cash grabs. I mean, money might play a part in this, but it genuinely feels like a story that needs to be told, and I love it, and I'm very, very excited to just discuss it with you in these next couple of clips. But if you have not read this yet, go read it. It's definitely worth it. It's so good. And then come back to discuss it all with me. And yeah, let's just get into my journey of reading this book. Hi, sorry for the lazy update, but my period is killing me, so you're gonna have to deal with it. But I made it to 100-page mark into The Wrath of the Triple Goddess. I don't even know if you can see it, but you can. So I thought I'd give you an overview of what I've been reading. I feel like we are getting into the point where like the plot is properly picking up, so it's great. Can I also just say I love how these sequel books all have been dedicated to like the TV show. The Chalice of the Gods was dedicated to the three main actors, and this one is dedicated to our friends at 20th TV and Disney Plus. We couldn't imagine a crew better to sail with into the sea of monsters. I love it so much. Anyway, sidetracked. So we're starting off. It's October, and Percy mentions that he hasn't really been having any trouble with like gods and monsters, like, and nothing has been popping up. But then he gets called into the office because his aunt is there, which is odd because Percy doesn't really have an aunt. I mean, technically in like the gods world, maybe perhaps, but like, you know, otherwise not really. But when he gets into the principal office, like Hecate is there and it's like, hey, I have a quest for you. She basically is like, I assume you've had a restful few weeks. The other gods have left you alone as I requested. And Percy is just like baffled. And she's like, I told him to stay away from you. I couldn't risk you getting damaged or killed before you undertook my quest. And I just love that. I mean, Percy's kind of pissed off at it because he could have at this point gone on like the two quests he still needs for like his recommendations letters. He's like, wait, so like you stop God from approaching me? And he's like, yeah. She basically gives him the quest to pet sit her two pets at a home in like the week leading up to Halloween, because she is just like going around for like different Halloween celebrations because she thinks those celebrations are like for her. So yeah, he has to come watch her Hellhound and Paula Cat, and like Percy can bring Annabeth and Grover along, which is great because we love them. So yeah, then we have Percy basically talking to Grover and Annabeth, saying like, hey, we got a quest to go on, telling them about it. They're excited about it because it seems like a relatively easy quest. Annabeth in particular is very excited about it because she has been wanting to do kind of like design a haunted house for like ages, and they were kind of like, but they've never really had the opportunity to do so. And we're kind of planning on throwing like a little party in Central Park for their friends, which obviously could not have like the full haunted house effect. And Annabeth just like, hey, we're staying at this house with like nobody to supervise us. It's haunted house time, bitch. And then we skip forward to Monday, and they arrive at Hecate's house, and they basically get like a tour of the house and instructions on how to take care of the pets, basically. But something that's interesting is that at Hecate's house, a couple of times get mentioned that it used to be a school for like magically gifted people, and whenever Annabeth asks her about like why it closed down, Hecate is kind of like, we do not talk about that. So I'm very curious kind of like what happened there. Maybe like there's something like in mythology that I just don't know about, but I'm assuming it's gonna become relevant to the plot of this book. And then there's also kind of like a couple of projects open in the laboratory that's also kind of like the kitchen. And Hecate is kind of like, you cannot touch any of my projects. The only one you can touch is a strawberry milkshake experiment. And Grover gets like really excited because he loves strawberries. And but she's like, you can't drink anything from it. You just like, it almost like tomorrow will be done and be at the perfect consistency, but it has to be taken out of the machine and put into the freezer. But like you cannot taste it at all because there will be dire consequences, which that's gonna turn out right. And then she leaves, she's off. And when she is gone, they go on a little walk with the pets, and it's a bit disastrous because the dog is just a bit over enthusiastic about things, and basically the dog's walking them instead of opposite. But at a certain point it mentions this, I'm gonna just read it to you. In fact, at the corner of Gramercy Park West, I had a hallucination. At the other end of the block, in the shadows between the street lamps, I thought I saw a glowing blue apparition, the figure of a child on a bicycle, paddling away from us in terror. When I blinked, it was gone. I took another step. Something crunched under my shoe. I looked down. A child-sized pair of eyeglasses lay broken on the pavement. Then they too vanished into the mist. And it is mentioned that Hecate is also like the goddess of ghosts, so perhaps something supernatural going on there. What could that mean? It's curious, you know? And then the next morning they kind of go on another walk with the animals and they drop off Annabelle at school because it's still school, and then also Percy at school, and then Grover goes to the home again with the animals. And after the school day, they kind of are supposed to go in like reverse order. Like Grover's gonna pick up Annabelle first, and then Percy, and then they'll return to the home with the animals. And Percy's done with school, and it just like takes a really long time for them to arrive. And at a certain point, Percy's like, I think something might happen, so I'll just like walk back, and until then I'll just write with Riptide on the ground that like he has left and is gone to the house, and so that not for like the case that Grover and Annabeth would arrive there without them crossing paths, they would know like, oh, Percy's already left. But that's something like Percy only learned that Riptide could do like a month ago, so he could write with Riptide on asphalt and no mortals could see it, and just like stays for like a couple of hours. That's such an interesting fact, and I wonder why there's like something we only are just now discovering about Riptide, like years and years into the story by now. But when he arrives at the house, he also see Annabeth coming from the different directions, so it also means Grover did not come to pick her up either. And the house looks like a disaster zone. Like it's exploded, so they kind of wonder what happened, especially because with the way it exploded, it looks like it exploded from the inside out. And they very quickly see that Grover did indeed drink the milkshake like he wasn't supposed to. And it mentions that he's like extremely large now, like he hulked out. But like I never saw a mention of him going back down to his normal size, but I guess he did somewhere. But in his hulking out moment, the door kind of flew open, and therefore the two pets have run away, which is a disaster to say the least. And Percy first comes up with kind of like a great idea, as how to find a hellhound except with another hellhound. So he calls Mrs. O'Leary, who is like the dog from earlier in the series. So she lives now in like Camp Jupiter, but like Percy can still call her. So he calls her and it's like, hey, can you help me find this hellhound that went away? And she just like starts running, and Percy starts running after her and like barely keeps up. And I love that so much. He says, yeah, I thought this is going to work. That's usually what I say before something doesn't work. I love it so much. And it doesn't work because Mrs. O'Leary doesn't find our hellhound, but she does find a puppy. He's so cute. He only says nope, which I think is so cute. He's very terrified. It's obvious that he's gone through some shit. but Percy manages to like learn its trust, but like Mrs. O'Leary very quickly just like passes out, is exhausted, and like as she passes out, she kind of like fades away and fades back to Camp Jupiter. But Percy does take the little puppy along back home to Annabeth and Grover, and they all love the pup. They really do. And they're basically just kind of thinking about what they could possibly do. And Annabeth's like, I'll just stay home from school tomorrow. Like, I'll call in sick because that I'll be able to like help find these animals. And Percy's also like, I'll do the same. And Annabeth's like, no, you won't, because you're already behind on school. You'll not stay more behind. Basically, you know that both the hellhound and a polecat are basically nocturnal animals, so you assume that through the day they'll just like be sleeping and not be causing a muck. So they plan for the next day for Annabeth to research kind of as much as she can to try and figure out where they could be, because they also both used to be like people, like your animals reincarnated or something. I actually don't understand how this really works. So yeah, the hellhound is named Hecuba, and Hecuba used to be the queen of Troy, and then the polecat's name is Gil, and Gil, it was a witch, so she's hoping to kind of like find information about these people that could maybe like help her determine where they could be. And then Grover's gonna like clean up the house, because it also has to happen, because before the Hulking House happens, you already sent out the invites to the haunted house party, so like it definitely has to be cleaned up for that party as well. And at first Percy's like, oh no, and Annabeth's like, wait, no, there's actually a great motivator for us to get the shit done before the time limit. And yeah, they just have this plan, and then at night, the next night, they will go searching with the information that they have. And then next day, Percy goes to school, and he basically is like, I should probably go talk to my history teacher, because she might know something about Hecuba, because that's like an historical figure. She might know some stuff, and that way he can do his job. And he walks into his like history classroom, and who is there but the one and only Chiron. Look at my notes, beautiful hand lettering, because they just like have a physical description of him at first, and it is, I love it. And basically where I'm at, Percy has just started talking to him, and he's just like, oh yeah, I'm a substitute, your stepfather recommended me. And like, no, there's not like another demigod at the school, at least not as far as I know. I just, like to teach regularly to like keep up with that skill. And I'm assuming that Chiron will give us lots of information, because that's always his job. So I am very excited for him to have popped up. I always love when like earlier characters pop up in these books that we don't get to see that often, because Chiron is very present in the original 5 books, but then like Heroes of Olympus and Trials of Apollo, we don't see him that often anymore. So it's nice seeing him again. So yeah, I will continue reading, and I'm on my page 200. I probably will have a lot more to talk to you about, because I'm assuming that more of the plots will have happened, because I feel like we did all of the setup now, but we'll see. Okay, another 100 pages have passed, so that's a recap. I do have to say, this book is so funny. Like, I'm annotating, and my orange is for funny moments, and this marker has been working overtime. I'm telling you that. I was gonna throw it in the pencil case and land it next to it. I'm sorry. But where I left off, we were talking to Chiron, and he actually has great information that we could use, because first of all, like, Percy tells him like the entire story of kind of what happens, and Chiron kind of like implies that Hecate is kind of like putting them up for failure a little bit, because Hecate kind of left these like torches in a house, and she's like, don't use these except for emergencies. And at a certain point, like before this, like earlier when we were talking about what to do, Percy mentioned using them, and I bet it's like, no, we'll keep them like last resort, because like, they will probably also notify Hecate of what's happening. And Percy mentions that again to Chiron, and Chiron's like, no, don't use those. So like those torches, like Hecate's torches, are known to like raise ghosts to do her bidding, and probably like, I don't know, they will fuck you up. So that makes just like Percy think that probably these torches were put in place so he would be tempted by them to use them and then like fuck him up. And then Grover, with like the strawberry experiment, probably was also a trap for Grover. And then the library, which also was mentioned to be a bit dangerous,
by Hecate in there too around the house is like a temptation for Annabeth. So probably this is like a way of Hecate like potentially setting them up for failure, like making them fuck up in some way, which I think is interesting. So far there's like no evidence that that's actually happening, because Percy also is like, but why, that doesn't make sense, because like she loves her pets, so she would never want anything to happen to them. So in that sense we don't have like concrete proof, like the fact that we spent like a page considering this, and Percy thinks about it a couple of times throughout the rest of this chunk. I feel like there might be some truth in there, but basically Chiron give us the solution, because Hecuba, who is the hellhound, she tells Percy that Hecuba used to be the last queen of Troy, and that when Greece took the city, they killed her children and enslaved her, but then she threw herself into the sea to die, and then Hecate turned her into a dog instead of killing them. And Percy's like, oh, so she'll like return to the sea, like we're nowhere near a sea. And Chiron is like, Trojans have bad experiences with the sea, and then he's like, oh, the Greeks came. The Greeks are like bad shit for them, so she'll probably want to go looking for like Greek people to further her revenge. And like Percy's like, I don't want to go to Greece. I was like, that's an inconvenience. And I was like, there was like Greek immigrants in the US, so she'll probably go after them. And then Chiron also tells him that female hellhounds have a strong maternal instinct, and that Hecuba, because of the way she like passed away and everything, it's not, you know, from like the end of her story, it's very obvious that the death of her children is like a big thing. So she's a very maternal person, just like in general, and female hellhounds are very maternal, so that's like double maternal feelings. So that they could probably use Nope, the puppy, to like attract her attention and get her back. So then after school's on, Percy joins back with Annabeth and Grover, and she and he tells kind of everything Chiron told him, and like Annabeth basically figured out like very similar stuff in the library as well. And yeah, they decide to go after to go looking for Hecuba at night, and go they go to Astoria, which is a Greek neighborhood, and basically they find this ruckus in this one restaurant, and basically Hecuba has kind of like raised the death of like Trojan soldiers, and she's like on top of the building, like she's on the roof, and Annabeth, Percy and Grover first fight off like the Trojan soldiers within the restaurant, obviously like the ghosts, and then when they're done with that, Hecuba has like fled and do a different restaurant where they basically do the same thing, except by the end of that like little fight, she is still on top of the building, and they go over to her, they bring the puppy, and like basically just like try to sympathize with her in the sense of like, we know all of this shit that has happened to you, and like we feel bad, and this is a way for like family, and like you can take care of this puppy, and everything's like going well until Percy like leashes her up, and she just is mad and she runs into the shadow dimension, what's it called, the shadow world, and like drags Percy along with her, obviously because like she's leashed and Percy's holding the leash. So Percy travels the shadow world, as she also like dips in and out of it in like random places. So that was interesting. And ultimately like she ends up in what's now Turkey, but it used to be Troy, and Percy just like kind of like reasons with her, and like brings in his own relationship with his mom, as well as just like his experience with grief over these last couple of books. And it's like, hey, I relate to you, and I get it, like I relate to you, but like I get it, it's grief is difficult, but you gotta focus on the now and the people that are in your life now. And like Hecate, as much as she like maybe isn't the best person, she does like genuinely really love you and like cares for you, and like she's still your family in a new sense of the word. And she also promises her that if she comes back to New York with him, and like in the house and stuff, he'll like talk to Hecate about giving her more freedom, and she agrees as long as Percy doesn't leash him back up again. And then they get back, and like Percy is knocked out, asleep for like most like a long chunk of time. So Annabeth has called his mom to basically call in sick to the school so he can come, because he needs the rest from like all the shadow traveling. And she goes to school because she has like a big presentation, like a group project. She doesn't want to let her group town, basically, you know, Annabeth. And he's like, I left notes on polycats in the library. You can go check it out, maybe see some more info, and then we do a plan of attack to find the polycat. And while Percy's in the library, he notices a display with yellow pamphlets of the like Hecate School of Magic, and they're like kind of like whipped up a bit, and like I don't know, it's like destroyed, but still like in a display. So like obviously it meant something to Hecate. And there's also a display with a dozen pair of children's glasses, and in like it also says, I picked up a pair of blue framed glasses that were snapped in half at the bridge. They were the same ones I'd seen in my vision of the child pedaling away from the man's in terror. On the right stem, the initial SHA were monogrammed in gold. Which honestly, I at first was like confused because he also mentioned SEG. I knew those initials, but I just realized now I don't remember. That's Sally Jackson, which is interesting because in the beginning of the book, when Percy kind of like mentions where the mansion is, Sally kind of like tries to say something about how she had a bad experience in that area or something, but like she shuts up really quickly. So I'm just gonna quickly add a note here because I am not sure if this is Percy's mom, because I don't remember if we ever knew her middle name that we know of, but like I make that click right when I'm talking to you because I didn't get that originally. But yeah, Grover like has an idea to go to Gramercy Park, and there he grounds himself, which is just like this odd thing he does. He just like basically becomes one with the ground and like can basically talk to everything that lives and breathes, like nature, not humans, like animals and plants and everything. And there to that he basically gets the message. Where was it? Basically he got some information because there aren't a lot of polycats in Manhattan, so when everyone shows up it's noticeable. And it says the last time one was seen was on Tuesday on Lafayette Street, so they decide to go there. But like Percy's also like, hey, that looked weird, what's going on? And Grover says that it's something he can do because he's a cloven elder and it's like very, very powerful magic, and that it's dangerous for him to do that because he might dissolve into nothing if he does it. Which like, dude. So they have a whole conversation about that, and it's like, what? And Grover basically talks about how he feels really guilty about like drinking the strawberry potion and leaving out the pets because lately he's just been like in a bit of a wistful state where he feels like he's going to be left behind because Annabeth and Percy are going off to college and like to Camp Jupiter, which is on the other side of the country, and they're not going to see each other often. And he thinks like maybe subconsciously he like sabotaged this quest so that Percy will not get his acceptance letters and will not go off to college. And Percy's basically like, dude, we love you. You'll never be left behind, even if we are on different coasts. Like, you're still a bestie, and we'll still love you forever. And like, this is absolutely not your fault. Like, honestly, which honestly, I love that conversation. That's so, it's just so sweet. At the same time, with the shells of the gods, we're just like Grover, Annabeth, Percy, like the three of them, like have like conversations about what their friendship means to them, and it just like it always just like, ugh, it makes me just like, I don't know, fall in love, I guess. And also Grover randomly remembers them mentioning something about naiads as well, so a bit confused what that has to do with it. But like they decide to go to Lafayette Street, and basically in Lafayette Street there's a lot of like in this area where they end up is there's a lot of perfume stores, so like it could be possible because I forgot her name. Wait a second, it says here because Gail, the witch that is in Apollo Cat, used to do a lot of like fragrances and like bad fragrances, and especially in like potions and stuff like that. So they think that, you know, with a lot of fragrance store in the right area, probably at least see this one fragrance store with it's a lot of like Greek kind of symbol and stuff outside, and they go in and there is a naiad that is running the store. So that explains things, but that Naiad is immediately just like mad at Percy. And Percy's like, I don't recognize you. And she's like, how dare you not recognize me or my sisters? And like, we have not seen the sisters yet, we'll see them later, but like Percy's just like, I have no clue who you are. And Grover also can't help him. And she's like, how dare you? And I also didn't really fully make the connection, but I did think that it would probably be Sea of Monsters related, because Grover also knows something about it. And Sea of Monsters, he's gone for like most of the novel, like separated from Percy for most of the novel, so that would make sense. But basically they have a fight with this Naiad, and then afterwards they go back into the store, and one of the employees tells them about this new kind of perfume thing they have called Miracle, and how Miracle, like the Naiad started producing this Miracle on Tuesday, which is when the Paula cat went missing, when I want to say her name but I keep forgetting it, when Gail went missing, so makes a connection over there. And that Philomena, that's the name of the Gaiad, because otherwise things are gonna get complicated. I keep saying Gaiad instead of Philomena. She kept like complaining about having to share, and then they're like, oh, who would she share with? And then the employee is like, this is like a card, business card for like her biggest competitor that she always complains about. And they go over there, obviously, and there is another guy who is just as bizarre as Percy. Just like recognizes him and it's just like, I don't like you. But Grover, kind of at first tries to take the lead and take off the attention of Percy a bit, and tries to make it seem like he is like looking for a gift for his girlfriend. And we find out that Miracle is a love potion hoax, and that her version of the new Sylvie, her potion is called Spellbound, and basically what it does is it paralyzes someone, like the person you spray it on, and she ends up doing it to Percy, because of course she recognizes her, is pissed off, and Percy still doesn't know what's going on. And Grover basically distracts Sylvie by being like, hey, can you pack up this thing that I want to get, because she has no bad blood with Grover, and he's like, I'll still help you get something for your girlfriend. And they do, and Grover is like, hey, can you like wrap this as like a present and stuff, so she kind of has to stop paying attention. He ends up putting something under Percy's tongue, and he kind of like slowly starts to unfreeze while Grover is talking to Sylvie, and basically like stretching out time a little. And then ultimately like Percy ends up eventually like spraying a thing on Sylvie so she's frozen, and he also wraps her up, which I don't know, I think is really funny. And then Annabeth arrives to find them, because before they left on like this little quest to Lafayette Place, to the area that Grover found out about, they left a note with Annabeth's dormitory that they would be going there, so when school is done she would get the note and go to them. So she is caught up with them now. And they go to like the last place, which is run by the twins, and I don't have their names yet. And Annabeth is like, you guys have been like approaching this without a plan, we should not be doing that. So let me first, kind of come up with a plan. And Annabeth of course immediately knows who the Naiads are, and they are, like I said, from Sea of Monsters. They're from Circe's Island, which you know what happened there if you read the books. Obviously that was a shit show. So Annabeth comes up with the plan to dress up, and this is a really funny scene where it's like, can I be Spider-Man? I asked. Can I be Spider-Goat? Grover asked. We could do a multiverse thing. No spiders, Annabeth shouted. I have something better in mind. An hour later we rolled up to Sense Forever in our new costumes, which were not better than Spider-Man. I told you, this book's funny. But basically Annabeth has like this noblewoman outfit, and she looks like very chic, and then Grover and Percy are kind of like dressed as like bodyguards, kind of like as gladiators, bodyguards kind of like thing, and also like a bit disguised for Percy so they won't recognize him. And they obviously immediately recognize Annabeth, but Annabeth like plays off that she was actually like continued Circe's like kind of like thing afterwards. And that she had nothing to do with like everything going on in the island like that, and that she has been studying with Hecate instead during this time, kind of like furthering the mission, I guess. And one of the twins, their names are Phaedra and Daedra. I have it now. And Daedra says she closed her school a century ago. She turned us away when we asked. Which, like, this school is getting brought up a lot, and I'm just like so curious about it. I don't know if I'm missing something within mythology, because I'm, besides Percy, I'm not the best at mythology. So I could be missing something there that's very obvious, but I'm just like, tell me about this school. But yeah, but now especially that I feel like we have that Sally Jackson possible connection, I just like am. And basically, like, Annabeth like gets pissed off at them and is like, you need to give like this Polycat back because that's Hecate, and she's gonna be mad. But then she makes the fatal mistake of saying that if they release Gale the Polycat into their custody right now, she won't report anything to Hecate, and otherwise they will face the wrath of the triple goddess, which is the title job, baby. And then like Phaedra and Daedra immediately are like, wait, that doesn't make sense. Like, why wouldn't you report this to Hecate? Like, that does not make sense. And then they basically figure out that Annabeth was meant to like look after the Polycat, and that she lost it and she would be in trouble if she would report it to Hecate. So then they also figure out that Percy is with them. So they are like, we'll be the ones to vengeance Hecate will kill you, and like then we'll, you know, be rewarded by her instead. And you know, that brings us to where I left off at page 200, which I'm assuming there will be a little fight. And I'm honestly very curious what's going to happen in these last 100 pages, because I feel like we're done for the most part, you know? Like, we have that little fight, and then we'll have Gale. And I guess, I don't know what the rest is going to be. I'm curious. So, we'll see. But I'm just having such a great time with this book. This one definitely feels more cozy in a sense than Tales of the Gods. Like, the Tales of the Gods to me was also like a very cozy, like nostalgic read, but it felt a bit more emotional in a way, because it was a lot about growing older and Percy never having predicted he would grow this old, like reach 18, reach a college age, and like thinking about like the future and like stuff like that. And this one just kind of feels more like a fun Halloween adventure with like lesser stakes. So I'm having a blast reading this. So there you go. Okay, it's finished. I don't show you the bottom. It's finished. I loved it, obviously. Let's first recap these last 120 pages, and then I'll give you more of my actual thoughts. So where you left off, we were about to fight Phaedra and Daedra. So we did that. It didn't go without issues. I'm not gonna recap the whole fight because the fights are boring to me, but somewhere during the fight, Phaedra used a potion called Beast Breath, and it basically turned Percy into like a half octopus, Annabelle into a half owl, and Grover into a full human, which he hated, and it was hilarious. They kept saying there was like no cure for it, and they also like used something that was that would slowly destroying these stores. Like, they had to be quick, because Percy's like, you say no cure, I know Gail's smart, I'm gonna ask her for help. So he does that, and they end up working together on this cure. And Percy even like says to her afterwards, like says to her to like make her help. It's like, hey, this cure could also possibly work on you if you want to, like you could definitely take it and run away from Hecate's like thing. Like, we don't care, like do what's best for you. But yeah, they end up working on this, and with Percy's like tentacles for arms, he touches Gale at a certain point, and that like shows flashbacks to when she was still human and working with Hecate, and Hecate basically turned her into a polycat to kind of protect her in a way, because she's such a powerful witch that is more a curse than a blessing, and she was afraid that
Gail wouldn't be able to keep herself alive, if that makes sense. So I don't know, that was kind of sweet because he kind of, before that flashback, Percy kind of comes in with like the assumption that Hecate just turned into a polycat because she was jealous that Gail was so powerful. It's kind of like, is it the best way of protecting someone? Maybe not, but it's kind of like sweet to see that that's not, the jealousy was not the thing behind that, but kind of more a protection kind of thing. But yeah, they make that, and then they manage to escape the store before it like fully breaks down. And then once they're a bit gone from the happenings, they take this cure, and it's disgusting, but it does turn them back into the human cells. Except there wasn't enough made for the four of them to be turned, and Gail basically is like, Percy, you take it. I mean, she says it in polycat language, which Grover can talk to animals, so he translates. But it's like, you take it as long as, because he also promised like you can run away from Hecate and we won't like do anything about it. But also like if you decide to stay, we'll talk with Hecate and make sure that you get like a lab with people to help you so you can still make potions and stuff, because that's something that she's unable to do now because she's a cat, polycat. So yeah, she's like, as long as you keep the promise that I'll get a lab with people, I don't give a fuck. I don't mind staying a polycat. I quite like it. I can be immortal. It's fun. So yeah. Then back in the house, they basically have the issue that there's one day left and they still gotta like renovate the whole house. Basically, it's still like very broken down. I don't really know how to work with that, and Percy basically comes up with the idea of what if we use the torches, because you know we can waste it at, we have a lot of hands to make work, it will work that way. And I kind of go back and forth on it for a little bit, because Hecuba actually tells them that for it to work, they have to stay focused the entire time. If they lose focus for like an instant, the ghost will break loose and become a very dangerous situation. And considering Annabeth and Percy both have ADHD, I knew this was gonna fail. I don't know why it's a good idea to give two people with ADHD a task in which they cannot lose focus for like a single second. But we're gonna see it play out. But yeah, basically I was like, this is a trouble for tomorrow. Annabeth wants to do some more research at school, and then Percy mentions that the SEJ definitely stands for Sally Estelle Jackson, so he wants to go talk to his mom to kind of like see and learn more about the school and what happened there. So the next morning, Annabeth, Percy go to school. Percy first stops by home where he kind of like talks to his mom about everything that happened, and his mom basically mentions that she, you know, she has the sight, and growing up she oftentimes saw things that other people couldn't see, and like it concerned her parents and everything. And one day she biked past her kids home, and she like could see everything, you know, that typically would be disguised by the mist. And she was at first scared that Hecate was like mad at her for like staring at house and everything. But Hecate just yelled at her there was nothing wrong with your sight, and then flicked her hand and broke the glasses of her face basically, and then said, you arrived too late, move along, find another life. And ever since then, Sally just like has worn glasses and has kind of like been more conscious about like telling people about what you see, and like hiding that she could see things that were in there, and it's kind of like saved her life in that sense. And obviously kind of like the you arrived too late is simply a reference that if perhaps the school was still there, she might have even taken Sally on her wings to like teach her about witchcraft and stuff. So that's fun. And then at school, Percy finally manages to talk to Eudora, who is the, what's it? Isn't she a nymph? I forgot. But that she's the guidance counselor, and she has kind of been like avoiding Percy, kind of running away ever since Hecate first showed up. And Percy finally managed to corner her. It's like, what's happening? And she basically mentions that she's very scared of Hecate because she's the one to recommend Percy to Hecate for this guest. Like Hecate came up to her after like a decade. No wait. So she hadn't spoken to Hecate and like since 1914, it specifically mentions, and she asked Eudora about Percy, and of course she talked him up, and that's how Hecate got to Percy for this quest. And she is just scared that if Percy fails, that she will have failed Hecate for like a second time, and she's scared that she won't forgive her for that. And then Percy's like, wait, a second time, 1914? That's in the last year Hecate's went her magic school. And it comes out that Hecate, what's her name? I keep switching up names. Eudora came up with the idea of like this magic school because Hecate was a very lonely goddess, and to like solve that loneliness she came up with like this idea with a school for the magic. And then in 1914, as some might recognize that year, a war broke out, and we know demigods and war is not a good combination, and therefore just like a whole lot of shit happens and the school was ruinous. And Eudora also worked as kind of like a guidance counselor and administrative worker at the school, and like I basically blamed Eudora for everything like going wrong. So yeah, that finally gave us the background into this magic school. And once the school's over and they reassemble at the house, Annabelle basically comes up with this idea to go to like a nearby cemetery because there is the burial place of Peter Stuyvesant. I think I pronounced that wrong, but apparently he kind of built this part of like the city like way back in the day. So Annabelle like if there's anyone who can help, it's him. But the problem is that there's a bit of a walk from the cemetery to the house, and they are scared of like keeping the ghosts intact during this time. But they decide to take the risk because Gail has also, with help of Grover, made this kind of potion that they just like rub a bit on themselves, and it will keep ghosts from like taking over their bodies essentially. So it's like an extra sense of protection. Hecuba, who also can raise spirits, but like she is very specific powers like this, so she can help with raising these spirits, but she can help kind of like keep them in check a little bit. So they're excited. They think we got it. And yeah, they just then leave for the cemetery, and before they leave, Priscilla says, I took one more look around the shattered great room. I felt like I was forgetting something. Bitch! Okay. Either way, that wouldn't turn out that bad, but I genuinely, when I read that, I was like, what the fuck are we doing? And why are we doing it? But yeah, we go to the cemetery, we raise the dead. Basically, Percy knows, like, you have to, Percy learned earlier, I don't remember exactly when, that you have to, like, cross the torches, and then that will make the spirits disappear, basically. But, like, they leave, they, like, raise them. Annabeth does that, but then when they, like, start, like, their walk, like, immediately, kind of, like, Annabeth feels that she physically won't be able to hold it properly for, like, this entire time. And Percy's like, hey, let me just, like, take over. And then once we arrive at the house, you take over and like, tell them what to do. So that's their plan. So the walk goes fine, not perfectly, but it goes fine. Nothing too bad happens, but like it's definitely exhausting Percy. And then because Annabeth already is a bit exhausted, Percy then is like, hey, let's just like hold these torches together and like you do the main thinking. But like we have like more physicality to hold these with the two of us. And they fix the house very, very easily. And then when they go to cross the two torches, Percy collapses because physically he's just like very strained. And that, of course, does not end well. Annabeth then tries to cross the torches herself, which just she can do, but like it doesn't do anything. And the ghosts kind of run amok, but she is able to keep them at bay a little bit. From like directly attacking them because she still holds the torches. Grover also gives both of them nectar, so they have a bit more strength to then continue on. And you know what? They just have to fight because this kind of is a bit of a witch hunt, as that Peter Stuyvesant guy is the son of Hecate, and he is like very against magic and like has a personal vendetta against his mom. So he is like, dad is shut down. So yikes. So yeah, it's a whole fight, and kind of when things are starting to go on, Percy's forgotten memory comes in. They forgot to cancel the party. So all of a sudden, this group of demigods just shows up and it's like, dude, cool yard decorations. And Percy's like, no, these are actual ghosts, help us fight them. And there's like a whole battle with them fighting, and it goes pretty well. And then at a certain point, when this Peter guy is distracted, Percy and Annabeth like cross the staffs again, and this time it actually works and the ghosts disappear. And then they have their party. It's very fun. It's a great time. Everyone's dressed up, having fun. Great. And the next morning, Hecate come back. The house is in perfect state. The pets are happy. She does immediately notice that there is a new puppy, of course. When they just introduce her, she immediately like fine with it. And then she gives Percy's his recommendation letter, which is hilarious. It's to whom it may concern. I recommend Percy Jackson for things. Sincerely, Hecate, the goddess of three forms, lady of witchcraft, queen of the darkness, keeper of mysteries, ultimate power over ghosts and spirits, almighty sovereign of the shadows. I was literally just I recommend Percy Jackson for things. I laughed so hard when I read that. Oh my god. And then afterwards, Percy just like confesses everything that happens. And Hecate is basically like, why would you tell me this? Like, you're not giving me a reason to like not incinerate you. And Percy is just like, you cut. But the truth is, we didn't take care of Hecuba and Gale, they took care of us. Hecuba needs more freedom, she needs your trust, Gale too. She should be allowed to practice alchemy in her own lab. And basically, Hecate at first is a bit offended about Percy just like suggesting even anything. But then he says, I'm trying to show you the best path. Whether you take it, that's up to you. But go over drinking that strawberry potion and tearing up the man's, in a way, it's the best thing that could have happened. I think on some level you meant for it to happen. We got the pets back, but now we understand what they need. We repaired the mansion, but its foundation has been cracking for over a century. Our architect Annabeth figured that out. You've got a ghost problem, old regrets, old grudges. We saw that last night when we met your son Pete. We owed it to you to fix what we broke, but the man's is still broken. I know how you can repair it to make it worthy of you and your family. Consider it a request, not a demand. And Hecate basically is just like, okay, fine, I'm not killing you, and you bought me new family member, so technically I owe you something now. And Percy's like, okay. And then we skip forward to the next Monday, where Percy meets up again with Eudora and gives Eudora the recommendation letter, shows her it, and then he also like tells that Hecate owed her something, and Eudora's like, oh, what you got? And Percy's like, I told her to open the school. And Eudora's just like flabbergasted, and basically Percy's like, I convinced her to give it another shot. And that after the semester, when Percy doesn't need Eudora anymore, Eudora can go back at the school again, which is just so sweet. And then finally we have another little fun ending with Annabeth, Grover, and Juniper, all three of them going to have dinner with Percy and his family, and just like a cute little moment of them just kind of like reminiscing a little bit of everything that happened and just being lovely to each other. And like Grover mentions again how he's worried about Annabeth and Percy moving away, and Juniper says, I told you don't worry about that, because no matter where you go, your roots are where you planted, and this right here, she gestured around the table, these are Percy's and Annabeth's roots. I just this book just kind of like made my heart explode. Just like how lovely it is. So yeah, that's the end of the Wrath of the Triple Goddess. I'm gonna put the dust jacket around it again to show you that I'm done reading from it. And yes, this was yet another 5 stars. I love it so much. I feel like Riordan is doing such great things with the continuation of the series. I do prefer the Shadows of the Gods, just because like I mentioned earlier, that one is just a bit more emotional, and I connected with a lot of like the more emotional themes in that. But this is just a really fun kind of like ghosty Halloween story, and it has such fun heart to it about just like found family in a way, and it made my heart explode just because of it, just with how like sweet about that was. And it does also have a couple of more emotional moments, especially when we go into the history of like Gale, and I already forgot her name. That's bad. I'm really bad with names, can you tell? When it comes to Gale and Hecuba's backstories, it does kind of get a bit emotional in those fronts, especially as Percy kind of like tries to relate to them in his own kind of like, not trauma per se, but like with his own kind of like more, I don't know, his own life, I guess. Trauma is maybe a right word, but how he like sympathizes with them, it really brings out a bit more of those emotional moments as well. But it isn't like, I think I cried during a Shadows of the Gods. That definitely wasn't the case with this one. It kind of felt more heartwarming in that sense when it comes to the more like impactful moments, where it just, like I said, it's a book about family in its core when it comes to Percy and his friends, but also when it comes to Hecate and her pets, and how you need to nurture that, how you need to take care of that. I feel like Hecate's situation is kind of not necessarily a found family gone toxic, but kind of, you know, they mention it's a foundation cracking, and that's definitely a thing. And it's about taking care of that found family. And then with Grover and Annabeth and Percy, it's kind of more of like, we're taking care of this before it can crack, in a sense. And it's so heartwarming and so gorgeous, and it's so beautifully done. And I feel like it's definitely like things people can relate to a lot, especially I feel like because this is a conversation centered around Percy and Annabeth going off to college. And I feel like a lot of people can relate to that, of going off to college and kind of being scared of your friendships and how those will maybe like transform as you go separate ways. So I feel like a lot of people will find connection within this book because of that. But it just overall, it's just another, just at its core a beautiful story, but overall just like a fun Halloween romp as well. So it's like perfect to read this time of year. And definitely I feel like these senior adventure books, the senior year adventures, like these books, definitely kind of felt to me like a cozy fantasy in a sense, where it's not too high stakes, we're not saving the world, just fun adventures. And I am extremely, extremely excited to go on a third quest in a third book, which has currently not been announced yet, but I do hope that will happen, because it would be a bit disappointed if we don't get the third quest, you know? I want to see Percy up to college. So yeah, let me know in the comments what you thought of this book. I would love to discuss it with you. And then hopefully I'll see you around next time. Bye.
Here I am again, the same old situation. Why does the God thing have to be so complicated?